Welcome to Shaking Up the Weeds with Upwise Capital. We're high from New York, a Ganjapreneur podcast.
Al Pacino for that amazing introduction. And welcome, Rick Granoff.
Woohoo! Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, you guys.
Yes, pleasure having you.
How are you today?
No, great. And part of the reason is we're in the cannabis business. So if you're in the cannabis business, chances are you're great.
Yeah, this is a fact.
True.
And you are in Rhode Island, the biggest little state of the union.
Indeed. There are 1 million people in the state of Rhode Island and 400 miles of coastline.
Beautiful.
Beautiful place. It has Newport and various things like Brown University, Rhode Island School of Design, a fabulous school and education here at University of Rhode Island for environmental and biology. It's really a very cool spot. Some of the best restaurants in the world are in Rhode Island. Shocking.
Yeah. So as you know, I grew up there, so I'm very excited to have you on the show. I adore Rhode Island and everything it has to offer. The smallest state in the union, but it's just an amazing place, an incredible cuisine and everything else.
Yeah, it's really a terrific spot. And I own my business here and grew my business here over the years. We originally started in the display manufacturing business.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I wanted the superhero origin story. Like, what were you doing before, and how did you get into cannabis?
Yep. So basically, I employed 250 people in 105,000 square feet on one floor in Rhode Island, Providence area. And essentially, we manufactured displays for jewelry companies. Rhode Island, as you mentioned, it was the costume jewelry capital of the country.
Yeah.
So we manufactured displays for most of the jewelry manufacturers in the state and in New England. And then when I got into the business from Boston University in 1980, I diversified the business into a store fixture company and opened up a little account called CVS. The next one I opened was Staples. And then, of course, ultimately, I bought the family business. And my claim to fame was I built the first bestsellers book departments in every Stop and Shop in the country. And there were 580 stores. And it was $72,320 per store. So I'm 39 years old, and I received a $44 million contract from Stop and Shop. I can't begin to tell you my ride home from Quincy, Mass. Was that day. So,
did you make it home?
Barely. So the good news was that, I ended up selling the company in 2006 to a fund owned by Michael Dell. And I worked for them for 2 years. And they asked me to buy the company back. I said, no, I'm not going to buy the company back. So I sold the company for them to a company in Thoroughfare, New Jersey. I worked for them for 2 years. They asked me to buy the company back. I said, no, I'm not buying the company back. So I sold it again to a Canadian bag company in 3 months, and then I retired. Ultimately, I got into the consulting business and decided, well, I'm just an old sales and marketing guy, and I decided that cannabis was going to be the next best thing in 2013 and 14, and then ultimately got into it. And then 8 years later, we're considered one of the largest interior millwork design firms for the cannabis business in the country. We've built 55 cannabis dispensaries in 11 states for most of the MSOs, and that's a multi-state operator, and several independents. Our latest project is 4 5,000 square foot dispensaries in Arizona, 2 in Illinois, what's going to be 11 in New Jersey, 2 in Connecticut, 7 in Maryland. As well as another 9 in Massachusetts. We've built 26 dispensaries in the state of Massachusetts.
Wow.
And in the process of building 3 grow sites. One grow site is in the oldest fishing town in Mass called Gloucester, Mass.
Gloucester.
Right. And so what we essentially did was we vertically integrated. And it seemed like common sense to us that if we're designing and building dispensaries, why not build them from scratch? So we partnered with a construction company, which I ended up buying into, and now we're able to build them in its entirety from the ground up, or go in to a space that's a white box and turn it into a fabulous retail cannabis dispensary. So what's going to separate the men from the boys in the cannabis business going forward is going to be the type of retail cannabis environment that's the most inviting, the most educational, and has the most to offer the consumer.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you have to be thinking of two things in the cannabis business: your entry to make it special, and your exit to know that it's worth more than the guy down the street who's churning and burning customers by having them coming in and out. That is not a long-term blueprint for success, in my view.
You're correct.
Yeah, definitely. And I know your story. You always say that your company started over a bottle of, what is it?
That's right.
So Count 18, Johnny Walker Black. Blue.
No, it's actually it was Johnny Walker Blue.
At the Capitol Grove in Rhode Island.
Rhode Island, which, by the way, the
No,
Capitol
well,
was founded in the state of Rhode Island by a guy named Ned Grace, who I knew pretty well.
yeah.
And he started it from nothing, and turned it into I think 65 units throughout the country. In any case, my business partner and I were talking, and we said, "Hey, we gotta design and build these dispensaries in our mill workshop, which we own." And so after the second Johnny Walker Blue, we somehow came up with the name Smokin Interiors,
Right.
which then I rebranded to Smokin Dispensaries.
Beautiful.
Because your dispensaries are smoking. They literally are like Apple stores.
Yeah, they're gorgeous. And like
in your honor,
yes, absolutely.
we have a nice little bottle of scotch, not Johnny Walker Blue. But how do you say that, James?
You know what? I appreciate the point.
Glengoyne?
Glengoyne.
Glengoyne.
Very
Glengoyne,
Well, Gaelic, it's
you
you
it's
just
for
throw
James.
letters in there.
It's an Irish whiskey or Irish scotch. James
I think
likes
it's
it.
Scottish.
No,
That's
very nice, very nice. Well, apropos to the conversation is that during COVID, the liquor business increased 35%,
yeah.
Same thing with cannabis. How much did cannabis increase? You know that number?
40%. What ended up
Wow.
happening was my friends at Providence Beverage, the Mancini family, loveliest people you could ever meet,
Yeah.
who have a billion-dollar company, that's with a B, shared those facts with me, 35% increase, because people were staying home and being aggravated by their wives or girlfriends or whatever it is.
Yes.
And, next thing you know, the continuous medication occurred. And the same thing has occurred in the cannabis business and will continue to proliferate. Believe me, cannabis is here to stay.
I can't imagine it going anywhere. My God. And
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask about, I know you work with Rhode Island legend and national legend, Eugene Lee, who's an
Yes.
Emmy Award winning and Tony Award winning designer. How did that come about?
Okay, so Eugene Lee has lived in Rhode Island his whole life. He
Yeah.
lives right near Brown University, and his son, Teddy, has been best friends with my son, Jonathan, since the age of 8 years old.
Amazing.
And what happened was, when my son was 13, Eugene took my son and his son to the New York Yacht Club, as he does every Thursday.
Yes.
Gene jumps the train. This time he took the kids, and they helped to set the sets up on Saturday Night Live on Thursday and Friday. Gene's schedule is take the train on Thursday, get to the New York Yacht Club, go to the factory, see the fixtures being made that he designed in his shop in Rhode Island, in his little home, in the back of his home. And ultimately, he would come back on Saturday. Well, turns out that my son and his son were regular people on Saturday Night Live setting the sets up. So my son was hanging out with Chris Farley and David Spade and Norman
Wow.
and Will Ferrell. And,
That's awesome.
he'd bring home notes. Will Ferrell, hey, Jonathan, keep on trucking. He's got them all on his wall. Anyway, so
Wow.
they've been friends for years. And then, of course, we spent a lot of hours at Eugene and Brooke's house. And unbelievably, I don't know how we got into it, but I decided to get into the movie business, and I went to a premiere, and there was Eugene Lee in Rhode Island. I said, Gene, how's it going? You still doing Saturday Night Live? He says, oh, yeah. I said, gee, but you've been doing it for 40 plus years. I said, you think you want to get into designing cannabis dispensaries? He looks at me and says, you bet, Rick, let's do it. And that's what that's exactly what happened. And he immediately, he runs to Lauren Michaels and says, "Hey, my buddy Granoff's getting me into the cannabis business. We're going to start designing one." And he designed his first one called Vault, which is located on the border of Webster, Massachusetts, and Connecticut.
Mhm.
And it was a major success, award-winning. So yeah, Gene is a lovely guy. He's 80 years old, still takes that train every Thursday to Saturday night, and it's unbelievable with his Yale shirt on. So yeah, so we've done some award-winning, fabulous designs. Whether you want them to look like Apple stores or you want them to look like country stores, we basically take your basic information and your requests, and we turn it into ideas on paper, and then ultimately renderings, and then prototypes, and then we make it alive. And if you look at dispensaries,
cheers to that, definitely. So you said before that you think the cannabis industry is here to thrive. I know a lot of people and a lot of companies are struggling.
Yep.
The equity markets are tough.
Yep.
Where do you see the business going like the next 5 years? Especially we're on the East Coast, right? So the East Coast is growing, but the West Coast is seeing compression.
Well, part of the problem that you have in this business is that people's eyes are bigger than their stomachs. And what you've got a lot of people that say that they're going to build these 50,000 square foot grow sites and don't understand that a 50,000 square foot grow site is a $30 million proposition.
Mm-hmm.
So they think if we build it, they will come. If we build it, they will come. Well, they shouldn't have watched the movie so much because it doesn't work that way. Okay. The idea here is you start small and you grow intelligently and wisely. And for God's sake, speaking of wisely, that is one of the reasons why we're working with Upwise Capital. Because they're wisely. And what it is you've got our talents, and I say that lovingly, and the ability to help with designing and then building them. And then they've got to be financed. So there are so many different types of financing that Upwise offers, which was a good fit for Smokin Dispensaries and our affiliated companies. That's one of the reasons why we vertically integrated, and we own our own security company. We own our own construction company. We own our own mill shop, and now we're partners with Upwise Capital, supplying filling that hole in the dike, and that's what you need to do. Now, where do I see the business? Well, first of all, I see the cannabis business ending up like specialty stores. Even if CVS gets into it, they're going to put 5 SKUs on the shelf.
Right.
The business of cannabis will ultimately be if you have a wonderfully efficient and depth of inventory cannabis shop that offers many different types of high quality strains of marijuana, edibles, gifts, all sorts of things in the cannabis space. Look, when you go buy seafood, you can go to Joe's Seafood and you get your lobster, you can get Alaskan king crab, you get your cherry stones, you get everything you want. That's the way it's going to be with cannabis, a specialty store in this country. And that's where I see the cannabis business going. I understand there's been margin erosion in certain states like California and Massachusetts. But if you're going to be growing the best stuff, the most efficiently, you're going to win this war.
I mean, we just spoke to an operator last week, both of us, that in Massachusetts doing 2,500 customers a day and sometimes 4,000 on a weekend, right? Like, there's some stores that I see on the West Coast that are doing, 1,000, 1,500 customers a day. What's the difference between a store of that magnitude that's able to do that many customers and see that many people a day rather than, some of these operators that are doing, maybe $100,000 a month and they're barely surviving, right? How do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
A builder, you see that all the time.
Okay, well, first of all, to have a successful store, you need a minimum of 300 to 500 customers a day, spending on average $100 per head. You've got yourself between an $8 and $13 million gross revenue producing business, throwing off roughly $2.5 to $3 million. Where people have gone wrong and gone awry is they say, I'm going to open up a cannabis dispensary. Well, where is it? Well, it's south of East Bumfuck, right near Screwsville. See, the problem with that okay, is that if you don't have,
I know that neighborhood. Jeez.
yeah,
You wouldn't know that neighborhood.
the problem is that you don't have a real traffic pattern. What we found is cannabis dispensaries with 15 to 20,000 cars passing by the general vicinity per day, you have a much better chance of getting those 300 to 500 customers coming in and spending $100. And, there's some special ways in which we've created an increased per unit sale cost by showing the consumer, once they enter the retail cannabis facility, how to get the consumer to spend not $85, which used to be the average in Massachusetts, but rather $150. And we do that by making sure the consumer's eyes look at as many fixtures with as much product in it before they get to the POS station. So they're inquiring, hey, I saw that glass bong on the way. Do you have that? And that's how you increase the per unit sale. And we feel that's vital.
That is. I'm ridiculous that way in a store. I'm that's me. I am the person you're talking about. I'm looking at everything in the store. I'm going to buy one item, and all of a sudden I see colorful, flashy things, and then I want to buy them.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you get stuck on every sale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sales and discounts and twofers and just retaining your customers is important.
Right.
What's you guys are fully vertically integrated. Most people don't really understand what that. They may understand what that means from a cannabis perspective, but not from your perspective. Can you explain what that means, and then kind of what you guys have coming up and what's next for Smokin dispensaries?
Yeah, so let's talk about that vertical integration. So we started off as a design firm. Then we bought our own mill workshop, which, by the way, is 30,000 square feet right outside of Providence. And so we're able to design them. We're able to build the interior millwork and cabinetry in-house. And now we're a partner in a security firm. We just finished securing 91,000 feet for AYR Sierra Naturals in Milford, Mass. It was one of the largest security contracts in the state of Massachusetts, where there were 1,200 cameras we put in.
My God.
100. Okay.
Wow.
So now we're able to secure your facility. So we're designing them, we're building them, we're fabricating the millwork, we're securing them. And now with Upwise Capital on our team, we're able to help raise money for them. And so this is what we call vertical integration. And we're doing it successfully because people want one ass to kick. They want to know, whose ass can I kick for everything I need? And we're
And that's Rick Granoff.
That's amazing.
you guys, and that's
You guys understand the business, right? I feel like you always say you understand the good, the bad, and the ugly.
well, like a Clint Eastwood movie. We understand the good, the bad, and the ugly. And by the way,
That's the line. That's the one.
line, and it is a good line because look, like
Great,
any other business, there's good, there's bad, and there's some but ugly. Take my word.
Yeah, this industry is very ruthless, right? And you need
It's
to.
very ruthless, and everybody's friends and partners. I love you. Look what we're doing. But as soon as there's a problem, where people are running out of money and they can't raise enough money, and the bills are coming, the tent starts to fold and the shit starts to fly. And we know where that shit is, believe me. And, we don't want that stuff. We want to make sure everybody's happy and peaceful, like the cannabis plant.
Yes.
Yes.
So, I believe that we're all in a special business, but make no mistake about it. You build a cannabis dispensary, you're going to be a multimillionaire. Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to bring on talented people who have good reputations, who know the business and are fair-minded. And God bless you. If you're listening to this podcast, and I expect some people are, you found the right place with us in Upwise Capital. And you give us a call anytime, and we'll tell you about all the great things that are going to be going on. For example, there's going to be consumption lounges soon. And I never thought it was a particularly good business model. But what's interesting about consumption lounges is that if you create a consumption lounge where people gather and try different things, as long as you're selling product while people are consuming, it's a good business model. And we feel that's next in the world of cannabis.
Coming to Vegas,
We-
coming to Atlantic City.
We have some of them already here in New York. In my
They're all-
neighborhood, there's 2 consumption lounges.
They're all in Manhattan. Those are obviously legacy operators, right? But as these markets come on board, we're seeing a lot here in the East Coast. These operators have to raise debt. We feel like we're a great capital source for the debt side. We understand cannabis valuation. Can we just talk a little bit about the debt and equity side? I know you've helped raise money for a lot of companies, and you understand, what it takes to get a facility built, what type of money is needed, and also how to sell off in the future and what not to do and what to do.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's going on is people who are lucky and fortunate enough to get a license and a location in a prolific area. And let me remind you what a prolific area is. 15 to 20,000 cars a day passing by your site, and then 300 customers get out of their cars and go spend some money. We're very excited about watching the companies grow. But what ends up happening is people who think because they get a license, the money is just going to be handed to them.
Right.
Investor community wants to know that they have skin in the game.
Correct.
People in the business have got to have some skin in the game. And if you're going to go into the business and say, well, look, I paid for all the licensing and the legal, I'm going to raise the rest. It's going to be difficult. And, obviously, if you have some friends and family, if you have a wealthy uncle that wants to help the person, this is always a good start. And I believe that whether it's debt or equity, we've seen a lot of debt deals where people are paying 15%, 16%. But in the end, the margins allow for that kind of interest rate, get the money and make a successful operation. If you have to give away some equity, give away some equity, but not too much. You've got to make sure that the owner has the preferential decision-making to make sure there's not going to be a world war when things get a little tough.
Yeah, agreed. You have to have debt and equity, right? We typically say it's like 65% debt, 35% equity to get a deal done. If you're able to kind of hit those notes, we'll lend based on 65% loan to cost based on the as completed cannabis value. So we can get the facility built out, but a lot of times we need them to purchase real estate or do something like that for us to be able to leverage an asset, especially if it's a startup situation, which a lot of deals we see, especially being here on the East Coast. I know you work with a lot of operators, startup, established MSOs. What have you done? Just tell everybody what you kind of done and what you're currently working on. I know you touched on a couple, but what states are, big emerging states for you guys?
Well, I'll tell you what's really surprised me is the state of Arizona. It costs $20 million to get a license for cannabis in Arizona. I don't know if you knew that. It's a staggering amount of money.
Yeah, they were going for like $12 million like a year ago.
Right. So we've been fortunate. We just received a contract to build 3 dispensaries in Arizona. They're 5,000 square feet. And then we're getting a 4th, which is 7,000 square feet. What are they going to do? They want us to build a cannabis museum in the location, along with an educational center. So it's an experience. It's an experience that the shopper will enjoy far more than getting pushed in and out the door. And that is the future of the company in the business, in my opinion. We are also going to be working in Illinois, 2 dispensaries there. We're going to be doing, I think, between 10 and 11 in the next 6 months in the state of New Jersey. We're excited about New York.
We're excited about both the states, yeah.
Sure. I mean, they're moving at a snail's pace in New York, which never made a lot of sense to me. People complain about roads. They complain that they need to improve their schools. They complain about the streets and the potholes, particularly in New York. Here's a fail-safe way of bringing money in to fix the states and some of the problems that they're experiencing. And
Absolutely.
they're moving slowly in the process in New York. I don't get it. I mean, quite frankly, I'd love to know who's running that shit show.
Yeah, well,
I say that as nicely as I can.
Yes.
I like New York. My children live in New York. They're
yeah,
happy.
we're New Yorkers over here,
Yeah, come on.
What can you say about the New Yorkers?
New York and Rhode Island, absolutely.
Yeah, you're both. You're
Yeah.
both. Yeah, you're actually.
I wanted to circle back to Rhode Island just because my great love of it and your great love of it. And I know you've had so many run-ins. I saw pictures of you with David Ortiz with Big Papi, who's a big hero of mine. That must have been incredible. You worked with him, right?
Yeah, I actually traveled with him to the Dominican Republic. We created some strains. We created some products with him that were pretty exciting, and it's in limbo now. But he was an interesting fellow to spend a week and a half with, let me assure you. I'm surprised I made it out.
He parties as hard as he plays, I'm sure.
I mean, probably harder, So we had an interesting experience in the DR, and I spent time in his garage drinking Hennessy in Western Massachusetts. That's a story for another day. So we've done some cool stuff with some really interesting people in the business.
Mhm.
And frankly, the most unique thing we did was several years ago, we received a call from someone that had the Margaritaville license.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, Rick, we need you to design, ready? Margaritaville. I said, excuse me?
No.
Now, Rick, you heard me. Margaritaville. So we designed a retail cannabis environment called Margaritaville. We had a running a stream of tile that looked like water. We had fake sand in the middle of the dispensary.
Wow.
We had cars on the walls. We had a little airplane on the roof. I mean, and we had little huts in the back. I mean, we created this Margaritaville. Well, it turns out that Margaritaville had a kids' retail environments they were opening up for children, and they squashed the project because they didn't want Margaritaville fucking up Margaritaville.
Yes.
And that's what happened.
Wow.
And we've got this fabulous design for anyone listening. You give us one word, and we'll turn that one word into something special for you.
If being a Rhode Islander, you must remember Buddy Cianci, who
Not
is
only do I remember him, we used to smoke cigarettes together at different political functions outside the facilities. We were the
Of
only
course
smokers.
you know everybody in Rhode Island.
And
he was
Buddy
such a
and I-
character. When I was a kid, you would see him riding around town on his horse with his toupee blowing off in the wind.
Yeah, we had an interesting relationship, Buddy and I. Buddy became boundaryless. What happened with him was his friend Ray DeLeo was fooling around with his ex-wife Sheila.
Yes.
And he decided to have the state trooper go to his house with Buddy, tie Ray to a chair, and put a cigarette out in his face. That's a true story. And he was
True story.
he was
Remember when I
indicted
was a kid?
for that. He was indicted for that.
Yeah.
But he was quite a character. I liked him. He was an interesting personality.
He's one of those personalities, whether you despised him or loved him, you had to have some sort of respect for the character of who he was, right?
That's right. And he did a lot of good things for the state of Rhode Island. I mean,
He did.
laundry list.
A lot for the arts, and he did go to federal prison twice. But hey,
But hey, who hasn't?
I love that the FBI had an office set up in downtown Providence just to watch him.
Well, Jim, I was the last person to see him at the Capitol Grill the day before he had to report to federal prison. And
Wow.
we're sitting at the table, and he said, Rick, do you have any advice for me? And I said, I sure do, buddy. This is what you're going to do. You're going to go there. You're going to clean some floors. You're going to do the laundry. even clean some toilets and serve some food. And then when you're done 5 years from now, you're going to get out, write a book, and run for office again.
Yes.
And he looked at me, he said, you got it, Rick. That's what I'm going to do. And that's exactly what he did.
That's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
He also came out with his own sauce called the Mayor's Own Sauce.
Absolutely. I have some in my home right now. So I said, make believe you're a Navy man. You're a Navy man. You're in the Navy for 5 years. What the fuck's the difference, buddy? And that's what happened. Yep.
People forget, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was quite a character. But in the meantime, we had some good times together, and it's a hell of a past that we had. And Rhode Island is a great place, and we're excited to be here. It's peaceful, relatively speaking.
Yeah, it's nice. I was there with my wife yesterday.
Yeah.
It was great. Got
Yeah.
great seafood, great lobster rolls. Very nice little town. Very nice town. What town were we in?
We were in Providence.
In Providence.
Yep, we were at, as a matter of fact, we were at a place called Hemingway's Restaurant.
Oh, Hemingway's.
And Hemingway's was owned by, that's right, founded by Ned Grace, the founder of the Capitol Grill.
Yes.
You love the Capitol Grill. Is that your favorite restaurant?
It is. It's my second office. Now, I have a wine locker there. Okay? And I was the first one they called when they said, Rick, which wine locker do you want? I said, very simple. When you walk in and you turn to the left, I want the center wine locker with my name on it, front and center. And by God, that's what I got. And in the end of the day, it's all about presentation. It's all about how you present yourself and your company and what people see. And what they saw was I had the balls to put a wine locker right dead center and walk in to the place. And I was very friendly with the ownership there. And I paid them back, believe me, 100-fold. I've spent so much money there, it's almost unconscionable.
Mhm.
Took a lot of clients there and continue to do so. And it's really great. Really terrific.
You should be the mayor of Rhode Island.
Yeah, you ever think about politics for yourself? I'd vote for you.
I'd give you my vote.
I'm really
He's
grateful.
out there. He knows everybody.
Yeah.
I'm truly grateful that you said that, Jim, and I do appreciate it. But politics can get a little dicey.
Yes.
It can get a little tough, and sometimes you want to be front and center, and then sometimes you want to fade into the background. I would like that option, and you do not have that option as a politician.
Rick for
Right.
mayor.
Yeah, you're more of a behind the scenes man. You're pulling the strings.
Pulling the strings sometimes, also
Yeah.
being out front. But
Yes.
as a politician, you can't hide in the back room. You're out there all the time. And
Yeah.
I do know many of the politicians, many, and
Of course.
Yeah.
and they're an interesting group of folks. Look, I'm happy to support the new mayor and the new governor, who I know pretty well.
Mhm.
And all I can say is that I hope that cannabis takes a little bit different shape here in Rhode Island. There are 3 retail cannabis dispensaries here, and there are 60 to 70 grow sites. Now, does that make any logical sense at all?
Yeah.
It doesn't
No.
make any sense. Okay.
I'm confused as to what Rhode Island is
We
doing.
need a
Yeah.
couple more dispensaries. At some
That's
point.
right. So they say they're going to allow 6 more. I don't know. I think it was just poorly executed. So hopefully they'll change that around. I was friendly with Gina Raimondo before she took office in Washington as director
Yeah.
of commerce. And she said, Rick, you got to help me fix this thing. And I said, sure. Next thing you know, she ran off to Washington. So we're excited. And, one of the questions, Jim, that you asked me that I found amusing was
Mhm.
if you were a strain, what would
Oh, yes. That's a question that we asked to
We ask
everyone.
everybody at the end of the show.
Yeah.
So
Well, here's my answer.
if you were a cannabis strain, what would it be called? Or if you could invent one,
It would be called Rick's Big Sticks. Okay.
what about big balls? I thought you had big balls.
Well, when you smoke it, you turn into a psychologist, an entrepreneur, and a jazz musician.
There you go.
Classic.
And I do
turn
play
into
4
Rick
instruments.
Granoff.
I play 4 instruments.
Do you?
Yeah, he
Really
should
well.
see him play the
What
guitar.
instruments do you play?
Wow. His son and
I
him.
play jazz piano. I play the guitar. I play the bass. I play the drums, electric keyboard, synthesizer. I have a recording studio in my home.
Wow, of course you do. Jesus.
He's
And
also got a book
my
deal.
son recorded his first album when he was 11 in that studio, and ultimately graduated from the Berklee School of Music and NYU
Yeah.
Steinhardt.
Yeah.
Traveled all over the world, played in front of hundreds of thousands of people.
Wow.
So we're a musical family, and music and cannabis go together a little bit.
I've heard that.
They
I've
go
heard
together
tell of it.
like peanut butter and jelly.
Yes.
That's right. And so one day you'll all be smoking Rick's Big Sticks and maybe listening to some nice jazz.
I love that. I'm excited for the day that Rick's Big Sticks are out there. And if any of your cannabis companies want a licensing deal, call Rick. He will put his big sticks out there. Are they joints? What are they? Joints? Pre-rolls? Yeah, pre-rolls.
Huge pre-rolls right next,
Huge.
Pre-rolls.
right next to the Upwise pre-rolls.
Yes.
Showing how much bigger yours are than ours.
Right.
Rick, you are a legend. We always
Thank
enjoy talking to you. We love working with you.
Yeah, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and Smokin Dispensaries and your team and everything.
Right. So certainly email rick@smokindispensaries.com. Please check the website out, smokindispensaries.com. You'll see the 6 or 7 of the latest projects we've done, including AYR on Boylston Street in Boston, and in Wareham for Nature's Medicines, which is gorgeous. Looks like an Apple store extraordinaire. And do call us. We're happy to help you. And we work together with Upwise, who's been a pleasure to work with because we're a good team. So between Upwise Capital and Smokin Dispensaries and National Security and our construction businesses, we're thrilled to help you in any single one of those or all of them, and look forward to working with all of you.
Yeah, we have a lot going on in some of these states, and definitely appreciate the partnership and appreciate you coming on today, Rick.
My pleasure, and great to see you.
Will you come back on the show a little bit later on?
Be my pleasure, and maybe I'll have one of Rick's Big Sticks with me.
Yes. Maybe we'll get you to play a little.
Hopefully
too.
we see you out
My
at
pleasure.
MJ BizCon. I know you're not 100% in there yet, but hopefully we'll see you out there in Vegas. We'll party a little bit if you come out. So definitely let us know if you're going to make the trip.
Will do, guys. It's great to speak with you today, and thanks for having me on the show.
All right.
We'll
take
talk to
care.
you soon.
Thanks, Rick.
Cheers.
Cheers.